Again. Okay, so what I'll do is we will go through lecture, and then literally the last slide of the lecture notes, you'll see it says questions. And so what I want to do is I'll keep the recording on and we can go through any questions that you have about the assignment. Don't stress out about thinking that your question is silly or anything like that, because more than likely other people have those same questions. And then Lee and I both have allocated quite a bit of time in tutorials to clarify things as well. And for my tutorial, to also make sure we are all clear about what we have to do next Monday when we head to the school. All right. So remember that we have different dates that we are going to the school between Lee's group and between the Monday and the Tuesday groups, just to fit in with the school calendars and so on that they have. So we've had to change our dates around, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we need to change the dates around. All right. So what I'll do, I'll start recording. So if you guys want to turn off your cameras so you're not, well, you choose whatever you want to do. Sorry, I don't normally say that, but I know most of you do. All right, and I will share my screen and go through lecture notes. Is that okay, everyone? Yep, we are ready. All right, so I'm recording and I'll share my screen. I'll get everything where it needs to be. Move you guys over there. Always ends up really weird because I end up having you guys on there as well. All right, so this lecture, do you like my swirly background? I was like, oh, I quite liked that. Is all about moderation and reporting and what it means for us as prospective teachers and what's already going on in schools. So the main things that we're going through today, we're looking at moderation and what it means. We're looking at a moderation tool that is used in most of our schools in WA because it is developed by a West Australian doctor. We're looking at some of the Notre Dame documents, some of which you may have seen, some of which might not be available, but they're always ones that you can create for yourself. We're going to look at reporting and then spend some time looking at assignment 2 details. I've got some things that I'll talk about and then there'll be time for questions. All right, so moderation. Moderation is a word that you might hear mentioned in lots of different terminologies, and it's something that I'm seeing coming into schools a lot more. Essentially, it's about creating consistency within an assessment and reporting. It's about making good judgments and comparing what you believe with what other teachers believe. So what we want to think about is, am I expecting too much or too little from the students in my class? And is that the same across different schools? Because what we realized is that depending on where your school was, you become kind of thinking about the way that you mark is based on the children that you have in front of you. Whereas what we want to actually create is an agreed standard. So that's why in our reporting, we have judging standards that say what an A, a B and a C is. And we want to be able to do the same thing with ongoing assessments that we have in different schools. Now we think with moderation, oh, that's not something that we would do with early years. It absolutely is something that we need to do with early years. The way that it's done is that often you'll hear things talked about as being a common task. And what that means is you might get all of the year ones at this time of year or, you know, before reports in some way, and you might get them to do a common assessment task. So you're working with, you're in a triple stream school, for example, you might have 3 classes of year 1 in your school. So you all get the kids to do one common task, and it could be a writing task, and you give them the same prompt and the same background information and the same criteria and so on. And what you want to have is the one task that you can then conduct with all of those children in the school, or what some schools do in different regions is they actually organise moderation meetings, and it might be an after school shared professional learning committee meeting, and they have 3 or 4 schools from the area. So all of the year 1 teachers would get together. They would have all done the common task in the week beforehand. and they all sit and go through what it looks like in your classroom. So they look at the learning program that you've created, you look at the assessment that you've created, and then you start to mark that work. So you want to create a common assessment, and then what you do is you ensure that it's conducted fairly and under the same conditions. So essentially like a NAPLAN, where you do it under very common conditions and there's very strict criteria, you're creating this as part of what you do just within your normal lessons. It's not meant to be something different. So then you go through and you get the children to complete that work. You then collect other work samples that might be complementary to it. You might have the rubric that would match with the work that you've marked. And again, you work out a common rubric. You might have a checklist instead of a rubric, or you might have the outcomes that you had. You then form a committee of the teachers who did the common assessment. So that could be teachers from your school or teachers from different schools. You distribute out the student work. So I've marked it and they're the children from my class, and I then work with other teachers and I mark their work as well. And we see if we are actually aligning all of our beliefs. It's a really, really great thing to do. I've been part of numerous ones of these in all different year levels in schools. And I find most of the time you are quite similar, but occasionally you go, oh, I was really hard on my kids. So particularly if you're in a school where the children are doing quite well, sometimes we're really hard on them and we actually mark them down, and vice versa. Sometimes when you're in a school that has lots of struggling kids, you're a little bit too generous with them. So we have to keep a nice high bar so that we are really clear about what we want the children to be able to complete. So that's our basics of our moderation process. So where you go to, you've got your judging standards. There's lots of them on there. They have been through a full moderation process, and they also provide, if you don't have the opportunity to do moderation with other teachers, they give you an example activity that you can do. Plus you've got a satisfactory, below satisfactory and above satisfactory grading elements within the Australian curriculum. And in SCASA, you've actually got ABCDs in most learning areas and in most year levels as well. You've got a numerous set of activities that you can do. So even if you don't have the opportunity to do a common task with other teachers, you can always use your SCASA judging standards and your Australian curriculum to go through things. So let's have a look at what some of those start to look like. So you want to think this is the content that you have. You've got the task that the children do. So they had to collect number names, numerals and quantities, including 0, initially up to 10 and beyond. So then they've got this as a common task. Really simple, isn't it? So what's the number name? It's the name 10. They had to draw and make it. Have they got it? 2, 4, 6. Yep. So they've got 10 little squares, and show me other ways. Don't you love the reversal of the 5s? So cute. And the teacher has put in a little annotation there saying that he used his fingers to show 10 fingers. So connects the number names, numerals and quantities up to 10, and in the orange is the annotation. Provides different ways to represent the number 10 correctly using words and diagrams. So let's have a look at and that's from the maths pre-primary. Let's have a look at another one. So this would be excellent achievement. So they've got the number 16, so it's gone above 10. They've drawn, they've shown it in lots of different ways, and the number name is written beautifully as well. So what would below achievement look like? That's what you would need to work out. So you can think about how you would be able to represent this in a number of different ways. So we've got a paper-based way, but you could also represent it in a digital way. So this is using Pic Collage. We took the photos, and you've got exactly the same type of task. You create a digital sample and you send it home via Seesaw. So that way you're creating a common task with other teachers, plus you're sharing it with parents so that they can see what the children were and were not able to do. And that's looking at pre-primary, a satisfactory achievement work sample. All right, in English. So in English, you want them to be able to use familiar words and phrases, and they're writing to show evidence of sound and letter knowledge. So the task was they had to take photos of the children carrying out their everyday classroom activities and use them as prompts to create writing. So I like the home corner, I like the books, I like painting, I like blocks, I think that says. So how would you grade it? When we look at it, there's lots of things in there that are completely accepted, and they're all the things that I would go, yep, they're doing pretty well with it. So that is satisfactory achievement. Why is it satisfactory? When we look at all of the elements that they have, write short sentences to convey ideas. Yep, I like the home corner, writes familiar words and phrases, spells words phonetically, writes from top to bottom, left to right, leaves space between the words. I've got all of those elements in there. It's satisfactory at that year level. Now, what's happened in a lot of our schools is that we now have access to a commercial program that helps us with moderation. And this is called Brightpath. Now, some of you may have seen or heard of some of the Brightpath materials. I have been involved with Brightpath from when Sandy Helsinger, I think is her name, started talking about it probably about 6 or more years ago. And we had a look at how we could use Brightpath in different schools, and it ended up being adopted by all the Catholic schools and all the government schools. And so every school in WA has access to it for free. Other schools around Australia have to pay for it. There are advanced reporting tools that you can pay extra as a school, and that gives you amazing data that you can pull off for your whole school. So they use the common assessment tasks. So they've got narrative retells, recounts, information report writing, narrative writing, persuasive writing, and book reviews. And it goes all the way up now until year 9s. So it's fantastic to be able to do this sort of thing in terms 2 and term 4. Some schools do it in term 1, and so they end up with a data wall and they're showing where the children are in the Brightpath. And it's a really easy way to do it because you've got the common tasks that are set by Brightpath. And then they actually have what they call their ruler. And so you're actually able to look at the children's work. There's a heap of different exemplars for them. And you go through and you say, okay, this is about where my child is, where that child is performing. It equates to this, and then it works out where they are in a whole lot of other things. And it also gives you some more teaching points and so on, a bit like if you've done anything with the maths assessment interview or with first steps. It's all moderated and it's all created in a way that you can go, oh, that's what I do next. So it's available for all our WA schools. So when you head out on prac, or if you've got friends and family, ask them if you can have a little look at some of the Brightpath materials and so on. Unfortunately, a lot of it is hidden behind a wall where you need to log in, so we can only see the basics of it. All of those ideas of being able to calibrate the examples and all those sorts of things, they're all hidden behind where you have to log in. So perfect for schools, but we can only see the promotional materials about it all. Okay, so our documentation that we have to think about as Notre Dame students. We've got to think about all of our documents. So we have to think about what is the purpose of our documentation, how we're keeping good records, how we're starting to analyze our documents in some way, how we're writing it, what details do we need to include, and a really important consideration, who is going to see it? Because there's nothing worse than you writing things up thinking they're just for you when they then get used in parent meetings. So you always have to think about the way that you write things and make sure it is suitable for the audience. And I always work on the philosophy that it could be used and shown to parents at any point in time. So I make sure that any of the language that I use in my assessments is always neutral enough and lacks emotion, but just describes objectively what I have observed in some way. So we have to think, how are you going to organise your assessments? So when you're working and doing things in schools, you'll notice that teachers are very focused on organisation. Most teachers, brilliant organisers, some of them little not so much, but that's okay. So you can work on your paper-based notes, and you've got folders, expanding files, your plastic sleeves, your post-it notes, all of those different ways that you can organize your assessments. You'll see that more and more teachers are moving into a digital space now. So they're thinking about things like OneNote, and that was something that I've got all of the students who are on prac for their internship, they're all using a OneNote at the moment and putting all of their notes and everything in there. So that way it can easily be shared with their mentor, and it can also be shared with their supervisor and their other people that need to be able to see it at any point in time. Not shared with parents, just with their mentors. And of course you have Seesaw. Seesaw is fabulous, and a lot of schools now have gone down the pathway of having a paid Seesaw. And so what I'm seeing a lot more is that teachers are saying to the students when they post their work, oh, can you pop that into the English folder? Can you pop that into your maths folder? And so that way it helps you with your organisation, because you just hit that child and maths and you can see all of their maths work. So it means that you've got a way of organising all of your things without you having to do all of it all the time. So we have to think in terms of what you're required to do. There is a difference when we're looking at our school planning versus childcare planning. So the prac that you have in second year is designed to be a school-based prac. The prac that you go on in third year normally is a childcare-based prac. What will happen for those of you in this course who are going into standard third year prac next year is there will be a blended prac. So there will be some weeks that you will be in a childcare setting, and there will be some weeks that you will be moving in then into a school setting. We're not sure of exactly what it will look like, but there will be a combination prac that you will do next year. So when you're in a school, you have lesson plans, you have a forward planning document, you have daily work pads that you move into, you've got learning centre plans, concept maps, your indoor and your outdoor learning centre plans. So they're your planning. In childcare, you'll have indoor and outdoor plans, you'll have a daily planner of some sort, you'll have a learning centre plan, you'll have some long-term overviews, you might not call them forward planning documents. There'll be some type of planning system that the centre uses, but it will be unique to each centre. And I find they are very closed about what they want people to access and so on. So you've got assessment that then links with all of those. Now these tend to be very similar. So you'll have checklists of some sort that you'll create. You'll have rubrics that you will use for extended tasks of some sort. You obviously will be using a huge amount of observations, particularly in a childcare setting. You'll have lots of anecdotal notes, which of course will relate to your observations. You might have focus children that you work with at certain points in time or that you choose to work with. And you'll have different types of reporting to parents. Now, in a childcare setting, you generally write something to parents nearly every single day. In a school setting, you don't tend to write it as much, but you are having an obligation of twice a year that you write formal reports. Seesaw has certainly helped with that idea of sharing information with parents, because sometimes I found that parents weren't really aware of what their child was able to do. Whereas if we put Seesaw into place or something similar like Fresh Grade and so on, it just changes everything and the parents are really aware of what's going on. So these are some of the documentation that you may have seen. Some of them are still available. I've been searching for where all the documentation has been stored now, but these are the sorts of things that you may have individual notes about children. You might have individual assessments of some sort where you start to record and analyze out what's going on. You might have a learner profile where you're starting to think about what is their areas of strengths, how you're going to plan for their extension, some areas that might require assistance and so on. And you then will have some type of group profile. So that could be for your entire kindy group that you might be working with, or a subset of a kindy group, or if you're working in a childcare setting, it might be linked to a particular age level that you're focusing on, or a small group of children that you're working with. So you've got different types of templates that are available. Now, when we think about with assessment. We've got our moderation process where we're making sure that what we assess links back to our original intentions and is consistent. We've got generalized assessment that we've gone through lots of different formats in the last few weeks. Assessment will lead to reporting. And what reporting is a way of sharing the assessment and evaluation with interested stakeholders. Now, your most obvious stakeholders are parents, but you've also got reports that need to go to system level. You've also got reports that need to go to external parties, such as speech therapists and so on. So you have to think with your reporting, your first question to consider, is it a formal or an informal report? So a formal example is your report that goes home to the parents at the end of term 2 and the end of term 4 from year 1 upwards, and most schools have that for pre-primary and some schools have it for kindy as well. Or is it an informal report where you're writing up a few things to then talk to parents and have a meeting with them? You have to think, what is the school policy? Some schools have a policy that they only do those reports and they don't send a lot of information home at other times. Other schools have a different policy. Different childcare settings will have different policies. So then you have to decide how you will report. Are you going to be doing reporting in Seesaw or something similar? Are you going to write up little notes for parents every week or two and send that home to them in some way? Are you going to say, right, anyone having difficulties, I'm going to ring them in some form? So it's creating that loop that you need to have where you're not just sharing an assessment tool that you have created, but you're actually going through, what does that mean when the children are not able to do that or able to do that really, really well? What does that mean? So before you're reporting, make sure that you are well informed about things and that you're really prepared. And this is particularly when you start and you're in your first year of teaching, that your first lot of reports, they are, I would say for me, they were my most stressful time of the year, that first set of reports in July. And it just was horrendous. I realized I hadn't collected enough data. I wasn't positive with some things. And so then I made sure by the end of the year that I was well and truly prepared. And so that's that idea of having a good plan for how you collect, collate, access, and use your data, because that's important with your reporting. It doesn't matter whether you've got parent night and the parents are all coming in 10 or 15 minute slots, or whether you're sending your formal reports, or whether you're writing a little note up for the childcare at the end of the afternoon. You have to be able to access, use, collect and collate all your data in different ways. So these are some different ways that you can think about reporting. You've got your formal reports, you have a parent interview. If you're with slightly older children, year 2s or 3s, you could do 3-way conferences. I have seen it done with year 1s, but it's not as successful. You've got work samples that can be annotated and they could go home to parents. You have learning journeys or parent open nights. I loved those as a parent, loved coming in and the kids telling me all about the cool stuff that they'd done and so on. You've got things like Seesaw or other online tools that allow you to share in different ways. And of course, you've got things like diaries, and children can have virtual diaries online, or they can still have physical diaries. Lots of schools still do. And you have test results. Those test results can be school created tests, or they could be some formalized standardized tests that you have. So you've got to work out all of those different ways. How are you actually sharing that with the important stakeholders? Now we have to then think, these are all very formalized ways of reporting. Depending on the school that we're working in, we want to make sure that we are looking at holistic assessment, so that we're not just looking at the written form. We're looking at the assessment that forms a big picture. So I want you to keep this in mind. Does your assessment provide a good picture of the whole child, of their social, emotional, spiritual, physical, all of those development areas? Is my assessment reliable? So am I just taking things on 1 or 2 items? How am I going to make sure that it's nice and linked in to everything that the children have been doing previously? And we have to keep the child in mind. So how can I be sure there's my dog, sorry, the cleaners are arriving. How can I be sure that the children, the individuals in my class are doing the right thing? And how can my records make sure that I reflect their journey, not just steps in time? So we have to know though, as much as we might want to have holistic assessment, we might want everything done in different ways and so on, we have to also be really cognizant of the fact that a lot of the information that we have and we access is publicly accessible as well. So you have the My School website. Now, if all of you haven't gone through and had a look at it, the My School website has a surprisingly huge amount of information on it. So when the kids are looking at it, when other teachers and parents are looking at it, you can actually find out a huge amount about your school. So you can find out the proportion of Indigenous children. You can find out the funding that is given to every school. You can find out all of their standardized results. You can find out their socioeconomic status of the school. There is a huge amount of information about every single school in Australia. So it means that we're creating transparency, but that's where some of your assessment data will end up informing some of the things that go onto the My School website. All right, so quick review. So moderation's becoming more common in our schools from the early years onwards. I'm seeing this idea of common assessment tasks. Sometimes you might hear them called as cold tasks and hot tasks if they're using something like Talk for Writing, but I'm seeing that in a lot more of our schools. Brightpath is used in nearly every WA school that I've worked with in the last couple of years. I love it. It's fantastic for tracking progress. Notre Dame documents, you've got lots of different ones that you can access. So they're a guide for your assessment. And our reporting is essential. So you have to make sure how you're going to collect and use your data. Now, I want to go through some things about your assignment. So assignment 2 is due Friday evening. So we're going to go through more details in the tutorials, but I'm going to have a look at a couple of different things right now. So it's due Friday night at midnight. I want you to submit one document via the Blackboard link in the assessment tab. Now I know there's lots and lots of different documents. I've given them to you in one, and hopefully you can kind of just continue on with it. Now, PDF works best. That one just plays really nicely. Word is fine, so you can upload it as a Word. If you are a Pages girl, it will not work. So you have to make sure that you put it up as a PDF or a Word. Remember that with your Notre Dame logins, you can download. I've had a few people say to me, but I don't have Word. I don't know why you don't have Word. You've got access to all of your Microsoft products as part of your Notre Dame enrollment. So this is what Lee and I are looking for. First of all, check the rubric. We've given you really clear details, really clear and lots of them, about our expectations. We want you to start with a good inquiry question. I've had some beautiful ones emailed to me with people saying, is this a good one? I'm like, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. So think about a good inquiry question suitable for a 3-year-old. We know they ask a million questions. Just go and spend a bit of time with one of them and they'll ask you a million questions. We want to make sure that what you're including are developmentally appropriate. So that means that we don't want to see reading and writing activities. We want to see the kids engaged in hands-on, age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. We want to see a good range of activities. So think, how can you create some good ones? And we need to see some appropriate assessment activities, again, that aren't focused on reading and writing. What we don't want to see, I don't want to see a whole lot of stuff on Twinkle and Teachers Pay Teachers, templates and worksheets. I want you to think about how will you get the kids to do things using real materials. We don't want to see generic descriptions. I want to see some specifics. So don't just say, I'm going to put Play-Doh on the Play-Doh table. What's going to be on the Play-Doh table? So we're talking about celebrations. So you're going to put some birthday candles and you're going to put in some patty pan tins and so on. So I want you to write down why you chose those activities. I want you to think about how we don't include reading and writing activities. The children cannot read or write. There is no ifs or buts. They're not on their pathway to it. They will do some scribbling and you could get them to do some colouring or something like that, but that's not the focus of it. So the activities or assessments shouldn't have reading and writing. So what do you need to submit? A personal philosophy, your contact, and remember that's just copy and pasted from the first assignment. A context statement, 250 to 500 words. Your early years learning framework overview, just highlight, don't highlight everything. Lee and I were laughing saying some of you get a bit highlighter happy. So highlight the relevant things. One concept map. I've had a few emails about that. And with your concept map, I've given you 2 different versions. Choose one or create a hybrid if you want to. It's not set in concrete that it has to have all of those boxes in all of that way. The same with your indoor and your outdoor learning centre plans. You might want to change some of the boxes around and remove some, add some, change their names. That's fine. 3 of the learning experience plans. Now they can be, depending on your context, they might be a week 1, a week 2, a week 3, because you're planning for a pre-kindy that only has every Thursday, for example. Or it could be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday at a childcare centre, or a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's your choice of how you want that to work. You then need to think about what are your assessment tools and a list of resources or pictures. Now I've put in a couple of frequently asked questions. Can you change the boxes in the templates? Absolutely. So just rename, alter, move them around to suit your ideas and concepts. Do you need to include all the documents? Yes, but with the concept map, choose one. I've had quite a few people ask, can you include pictures? Oh, goodness gracious, yes. Go onto Pinterest, go onto Google, find some little examples. And oftentimes with those learning centre plans, you might put a little tiny picture in of an example of the activity that you're planning for. And why do the documents look different? I've had a few people say these aren't the documents that we've seen previously. So what Lee and I did was we thought, because we're getting you to plan for 3-year-olds, we altered the standard documents to better suit our needs. Now, when you go and do your childcare prac, what will happen is that they will give you their documents, and every childcare centre has different types of documents. So they will probably show you their planning documents and you'll have to use those. Or you could use something like these ones. You could do a little bit of a movement around of different boxes and so on. So now I want to see if we have some question time. So I'm going to stop sharing. All right. And let's go in. I've got one question. Nope, no questions yet. So what questions or queries do we have that we've got coming up about your assignment? We've got 10-15 minutes before you guys need to head off and do next things. All right, Jay, what would you like to ask, darling?
I think my biggest question is with our explicit teaching, our mat time.
Yes.
Because they're 3. As you know.
Yes.
I just think if you're going with if your philosophy is all about child-led learning and jumping on what they're interested in, is it simply enough to introduce a concept as an invitation at the mat time and then scaffold the activities and the invitations in the classroom around that, and then focus on the children that are maybe your focus children and see, like have your checklist, have your objectives, yep, all there, and you've set up the environment to kind of entice them to do things. But if you are a child-led believer, then is that enough? That's my question, because it's very different to. Yes.
So even as a child-led, there are some points in a routine where you will have all the children on the mat together. And that's usually a beginning session. And I've actually found a fabulous video that we're going to look at in our tutorial. That is a whole mat session with 3-year-olds.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see how she runs her mat session. And I went, oh, that's just what you guys needed to see. So even though it is child-led, you will see in a childcare setting or in a pre-kindy that you will get the kids together at some point. And so then it might be that some kids will wander off and they'll head away, but work on the fact that you have most of the kids sitting there with you at mat time. And that is, and then it won't be that they do every activity. So with 3-year-olds, you wouldn't have ring a bell and they rotate through. They will choose where they want to go to and for how long they want to do that.
I just like going off the 3-year-olds I nanny, and they never stay at any place. And also the minute I try to direct them or guide them into something I think they might be interested in, they're like,
they go, no. They literally say,
"Go away, JJ."
No. So it is surprising when you have them en masse that you will have them sit. They will sit with you for a few minutes. It is quite surprising what they do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, my mouse won't let me scroll down. Now, Romaine, I think you asked, my chat is going and I can't move stuff around. Romaine, you asked, do you need to include references with your philosophy? Was that correct? Yep. So yes, please put the references in. And you had something else as well in there.
I have a lot of questions.
You have a lot of questions. Hit me with them, because I'm like, my mouse won't move. It won't let me, it's just scrolling and not doing what I want it to. All right, hit me with questions.
Can I get rid of the other concept map that I'm not using?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Same goes for everyone.
Okay. For the indoor plan, for the ICT part, I've found a video that I want to show them, and I've just added the link. Is that okay? In the
yes, and maybe put a little like half, a phrase of what is the video about.
Okay.
Video on insects or something like that,
Okay, and then I have to make a reference list for those links as well.
I think most of the time, if you included a resources page where you linked in the things where you found them, that would be enough.
Okay.
Yeah, so you put your references, put your philosophy, and continue just like you did with the references on there, then move into all the other elements. And then on your resources page, put links to where you got all your, where you found stuff.
Okay. Does it have to be just a link, or can I say who it's by?
Can you do what, sorry?
Can I just include the link, or do I have to say who it's by?
No, you can just include the link if you want to, because it doesn't have to be in full APA references, because it's more a list of resources rather than that.
Okay. And you did mention putting in pictures. Can I put the pictures in on the resource page?
Yeah, you can put the pictures there, or some people might put pictures in the little boxes of the learning centre plans and so on, like little examples of what that activity might look like.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I sometimes get ones when I do early childhood planning that have lots of little pictures from Pinterest or something like that. So it gives you like, this is what it would look like. And that can be a great idea, because sometimes when you write things, I go, I don't know what you mean by that. And sometimes a little picture will be perfect to explain it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, we don't have to, with the pictures, we don't have to say who it's by, just do a reference.
And again, you could put the link of, you might have found it from the one of the homeschooling sites. You could put the link from there, activity adapted from, and just put the link.
Okay.
And that would be good for you going back to it as well.
Okay. And one more question. On the outdoor learning centre plan, there was a box that said something about planning for children's interests, future interests, or something like that.
Yep. And so that's where you could add in something that would be directly related to your topic that you're doing as your inquiry question. you might add in random things. Yeah. But you can move any of the boxes around.
Is that kind of like a reflection box or no?
Not really, no. More planning.
Okay.
Yep. Now, okay, I've got, oh my God, sorry, I don't want to do anything. Mouse is going weird, cannot see things. So there was someone I can see half a question.
Oh, that was me.
Thank you.
Jenny.
Lauren, hit me.
It's just, it's a really silly question, and like I can't seem to wrap my head around it, but that's all good. So with the 3 lessons, obviously, like we base each lesson on like the theme or our like inquiry question or whatever. But then with the activities for the other hypothetical children that like when they're not doing the focus one, and they're doing the other ones around the center, I feel like, are those going to be pretty much the same for each lesson, considering it's consecutive, and obviously the kids will be moving around from thing to thing? Like, is that?
I would make them, they link, but they're different. So
Okay.
say I did the celebrations, you know, do we all have a birthday?
Yeah.
My question, and different celebrations we have around the world. So my Play-Doh table would have my birthday candles and stuff. I might then have a drawing table, and on my drawing table I've got some different things that they could color and they could move around. Then I've got in my construction area, I've done some different celebration things, and I found some cutouts that they can use and they can put in the construction area and stick onto things and make, you know, different whatever they want to make celebrations. Then I could do something similar but with different stuff the next week.
Right. So you're still on the same area, possibly like still on the like construction table and whatever, but just doing different things that relate to that theme.
Yes.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'd still have construction, Play-Doh, collage, but I have slightly different things on them. So next week in the Play-Doh table, I might not have the birthday candles. I might focus on different food that we're making. So I might have Play-Doh in 5 different colors, and we can cook, and we have little pots and pans, and we're cooking for the celebrations.
And that would be the same, obviously, for the focus like thing with the focused children, that like it's sort of activities relating to that main idea, but it just changes slightly every week. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Is that making sense a little bit more now?
A lot more sense. Like I just had so much trouble trying to figure that out in my brain for some reason.
No, it's because you just haven't seen it in operation.
Yeah.
So you think, oh, I'll just put out the Play-Doh. We have to have something with the Play-Doh. So it might be that, you know, with the Play-Doh, I might be focusing on my, you know, some of the letters in the environment around us, and I might have little letter things that spell out my name in cute little bits and so on. And I can do that.
It's really helpful. Thank you.
All right, now, my chat. Don't put it in chat, can't see chat. So I had, stop, I can't move it, I can't see. Right, I've missed, what was after Lauren's? Jane. Yeah, Alessia, that was yours, was it?
Actually Amy's, but I'll ask on her behalf.
Thank you.
Her mic's not working.
Okay.
Just wondering, there's Amy.
Amy waving.
What's the difference between the assessment focus and observation focused children box?
Yep.
And she's also wondering with the math session, do you want it to be very in-depth to go over another page, or do you want to keep it to 1 page and keep it quite concise?
First one, the math session, keep it quite concise. Try and fit it in that box, because you're only talking about 10 or 15 minutes that you would be doing, and don't script it, but just do things that you would actually be doing during the math session. All right. Now, in terms of the focus and the assessment children, focus children, I'm looking at them for a particular purpose. Assessment generally is what I'm looking at with the bigger group. So I might be focusing on gross motor movements and hopping. And so one of my activities is they're hopping across something in an obstacle course. So I'm recording that. But I might be looking at Johnny, Freddie and Sarah because they're being little buggers to one another. And I'm looking at them from a observational point of, can they play nicely with one another in some way? And all of this for you is hypothetical. And so that's where put in your context that you're working in whichever environment, and this is why you're doing it that way. All right, so just hypothetical ones that you've got. All right, now who was my next one? Yes.
Can you please repeat what you said about the observation and the focus children?
So with if I'm having my focus kids I've chosen for either I'm worried about them or I haven't paid enough attention to them for a little while, so I want to focus on them, and I usually have a reason for focusing on them. And it might be a gross motor, a fine motor, a social, a developmental aspect of some sort that could or could not be related to my topic. My assessment, on the other hand, is related directly to what I'm using as my intentional teaching things, and that'll go across the whole class. And that could be the same, but it might be slightly different. My focus kids are often kids that I'm a little bit concerned about in some way. Does that make sense? Yep. All right. Now, Amber.
Yes, I wrote for our 3 lessons, can the learning centres be indoor and outdoor, like an open door environment?
Yes, they could be. So if you had written in your philosophy that you were Reggio and that you want the children to use the indoor and the outdoor, then and put some sort of code for me that this is an indoor and this is an outdoor and so on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So you could do that. Now, there was a question above Amber's that I can't see.
Sophie.
Good, Soph, tell me about it.
I asked, can you use you do the indoor and outdoor plans?
Yes.
And then should you use the learning centers you've created there in your learning experiences? Or
yes, you can.
Okay.
So your indoor and your outdoor plans and your concept map, all of those, you can take all of those and make them into your 3 centers, your 3 ones.
Yeah.
So copy and paste.
I was also wondering with the concept map.
Yep.
How specific does that need to be? Because
concept map is a little bit more of an overview.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
Whereas the learning centre plans, those 3 consecutive ones, I want them a little bit more detailed.
Okay, awesome.
And specific. And Olivia, I can read yours. It hasn't disappeared yet. Do we have to fill in every box or just a few? You can just fill in a few, but take out the other boxes and, make it look nice rather than having a whole lot of empty boxes on some of the templates. So you can remove boxes and so on. All right. Do we have any more questions? Now my mouse is really just gone.
For the focus children, can we add in an observation other than the assessment that we're doing?
Yes. Yes. So you might say checklist on fine motor development or pencil grip or something like that.
Okay.
And that doesn't, sorry, you go.
Sorry, you can...
I was going to say, and that doesn't have to necessarily relate to our concept.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. So it can be like, them interacting with each other.
Yep. And
nicely.
Look at those developmental checklists and things that you can find for 3-year-olds. That will give you some different things that you would be able to add in as well for those.
So it can just be a checklist. It doesn't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs of what we do. No, just checklists and things. Yep. Okay.
Jenny, I was just wondering, all right, with the 2 concept maps that we've got, correct? So the first one, our option 1, is talking about obviously the specific subjects and things like that. But if we chose the developmental domain, does that mean we still have to add another key in and then state, oh, this is for maths, this is for English?
You
So I'm
can.
finding that a bit difficult.
Yeah, you can if you want to and if it fits. But with 3-year-olds, you may find it easier to do the developmental domains as your concept map. But then in the way that you structure your learning centre plans, that one might be a little bit more focused on a mathematical or a numeracy development rather than a straight mathematical concept.
Okay, yeah, great, because that's what I've done. I've got a Pacific English table for them to focus on, but I don't have that in the concept map because I find that a bit.
No, and that's
difficult.
why this assignment it's not meant to be hard, but I think you guys just haven't played with these documents before. You haven't had to make all these decisions previously. So it's a new one for you.
Okay, thank you.
Plus 3-year-olds. I know. All right, have we got any other questions, my dears? My mouse is back now.
Sorry, Jenny, I just have a quick question.
Yes, Alessia.
So my personal philosophy is quite closely aligned with the Reggio Emilia approach.
Yep.
And obviously, like in some Reggio Emilia centres, like the topic, your focus topic may take longer than 3 lessons. So I guess my question is, are we allowed to like make a note of any prior knowledge or any like follow-up lessons that you might incorporate in the plan, just to say that, you know, it might be expanded further in these ways, or if you get what I mean?
Absolutely. I think use your context part to do that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
And I think then, we just put a word guide. It's not a word limit.
Okay.
On the context. So if you wanted to do this is the context and this is just a little bit more information about the way my lessons are structured.
Perfect. Thank you.
And that just shows me that you've been thinking about it in different ways. Because you won't cover all of that in just 3 lessons. It might literally go for 5 or 6 weeks in a room, depending on the way that the kids love it or not. Or it might go for 2 lessons and then they go, I don't like that anymore.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen.
Okay. All right. Anything else, my dears, before I have to send you on to Tracy? No, you're okay. All right. So my people, we will talk more at 10:30 all about our school-based visits. And I will have next week is, I think, more or less all the weeks coming up. I've got only one that will be a live lecture. The rest will all be pre-recorded because I am on site, okay? Because we are heading off to schools or you are going to be there. So that won't give me enough time to travel from where I live, all right? And I don't like doing lectures at uni. I don't want to do that. That's just weird. I don't have an office, so I would have to sit in a random room. That's just strange. All right, everyone. So have a great week. I will see my people at 10:30 and the rest of you, I will see at different points, okay? But just email if you have any questions about anything, all right?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks, Jen.
See you later, guys. Have a great week.
Jenny.
Yes, Vanessa.
I was just wondering, completely off topic, nothing to do with uni or anything. I've got a cousin, right, 2 years old, and I've just been very wondering about this. So he's 2 years old now. He's turned 2 in March, if I'm correct. And we've just found some behaviors of his that's just a bit, like I work at a childcare center, so I can see certain stuff now what toddlers do and things like that.
He's not fitting the range of norm.
Well, I wouldn't say that. He's very different to Australian children. It's very much, because I'm South African, right? So he recently, last year, came over to Australia, right? So it's the first time really, and he's completely South African country boy, country pumpkin, if you would so call him like that. He's so into the mud and things like that. But just certain stuff that's like, if you call him or you call by his name, he'll just ignore you. Like completely, utterly ignore you. Right. And there's nothing wrong with his hearing, because the second you start playing a video or anything, he'll come straight away.
Yep.
But if you call to him and you ask him to do stuff, he ignores you completely and just does what he wants. And I'm just wondering, is that just a discipline thing, or is that...
You need to do some more observations. So think, is it just him being a little bugger?
Yeah.
Or is it that there is